Good morning. I'm going to talk about the daily routine of being a caregiver to a spouse, a friend, a relative who has Alzheimer's, dementia, or perhaps Parkinson or some kind of brain damage. Now, before you get comfy, you should know being a caregiver is extremely difficult. In fact, when you speak to people about it, they'll tell you that it's the roughest thing they've ever had to do in their life. And doctors will tell you, get a hobby, because most of the caregivers, they know by the time their spouse passes, they implode. What I mean by implode, they have a mental breakdown. Some of them also commit suicide. But this caregiver is not going to worry about that for right now. This caregiver is going to talk to you about taking care of your spouse and what happens during one day. Now, we're just talking about Monday, for example. We're not going to talk about Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. No, we're going to concentrate on Monday. So what does somebody with Alzheimer's, dementia, or Parkinson's operate? Well, to tell you the truth, it's very difficult. The first thing is called obsession. They get obsessed with stuff. The first thing my husband got obsessed with was taking his pills. He would arrange them in a neat little row, and then he would take them out and examine them, and he would examine them even closer with a magnifying glass, and then he would put them back and rearrange the bottles and take them out, place them on the table, look at them very, very closely, and put them back into their bottles, and then take them out again. And he would do this for hours. So now I'm in charge of his medication. And he knows when it's time for him to take his pills, I will give it to them. But you have to understand, you do much more than just give them the pills. You wait for them to take the pills. Now, he has these little gummies, fiber, vitamin C, D, and it is a problem to get him to take it. So now, even if I am so tired I can barely drag my feet, I make sure that he takes his medication before I go to bed. Otherwise, he won't take it, or he'll forget to take it. And yes, they get very, they have their likes and their dislikes, just like a child. And I have to stand over him to make sure that he takes his pills. And sometimes I tell him that if he doesn't cool it, I will call up the doctor and tell the doctor he refuses to take his medication, and we'll go to Plan B. Plan B usually means having a tube put in him so the medication can be put into his system, which he does not like either. So usually, after a while, he will take his medication. He also obsesses with junk mail, and we all get a lot of that. And he reads each and every one of them, not once, not several times, but more than several times. He can spend the whole day concentrating on literature, asking him for money. Now, my husband already had his license taken away from him a year ago, and it's been advised that I take away his wallets. Well, I don't want to do that yet. Why take away his wallets? Because he has credit cards, and he can take out his credit cards and put down the numbers. But now he has to let me know which charities he wants to send to. And we discuss it, and I said, okay, I will pay them the next time I pay a major bill. And that takes care of it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any money left. So I would suggest you set a budget of how much money your spouse is allowed to send to charities. Now, they always ask between $25, $50, $75, $125. And luckily for me, he always puts 25 or 15 or 10 or even writes in the amount. But you have to make sure with the credit cards that you are aware of how much money he's pledging from those credit cards. Otherwise, when you receive the bill from the credit card company, you may get the shock of your life. The other thing with him right now is that he has trouble with utensils. He can't always tell the difference between a knife, fork, spoon. So you have to go to the tool and pick up the drawer where the silverware is kept and pick it up and identify the pieces for him. Now, I make lunch and breakfast, and he provides dinner. He's a former chemist, and he really is a very, very good cook. But you have to make sure that you put all the food out on the counter. And when you tell him to go with the different stuff you taken out for him to use, you have to point or give great detail as to where the location is. He has to see it and know where it is. Sometimes when you say words, dishwasher, refrigerator, counter, he has a blank look on his face. You have to point out what a dishwasher looks like, what the refrigerator looks like, and also everything else. The meat, the starch, potato, rice, bread, and the vegetables. Cabbage, string beans, green peppers. Otherwise, he won't know what you're talking about. The other thing is that you have to make sure he knows what the day is, because my spouse never knows whether it's Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday. And while it's not really important, things like doctor's appointments, getting your hair cut, meeting somebody for an appointment, you have to make sure they understand what day it is and also what time it is. Now, we're getting him a watch that's going to tell him verbally what time it is, so he can always see it. But if he's lost the ability to tell time, it doesn't really make much of a difference. And when he looks at his watch, he gets confused. So he tells me a time, and I check my watch, and he's way off. So make sure you have your own watch, because they really don't remember, and they stop knowing and seeing are two different things for them. They lose their cognitive abilities, which is a problem. Now, he's still okay dressing, although he takes a very long time. When he goes into the closet, he looks at the shirts, and he looks at the shirts, and he looks at the shirts, and he looks at the pants, and he has trouble with all of this. So you have to make sure he knows where everything is, or she knows where everything is, so they can find it. You cannot speak in abstract terms, and you cannot really speak about things that happened in the past, because they don't remember it. The things he does remember, music. He loves music, classical music, opera. So we have music on all day, and he listens to it, and he checks out the names of the composers. Another thing he really likes is reading, but reading is tough, because he can read something and 5 minutes later he has to go back and reread it because he doesn't remember reading it. So reading can pose a problem. But he does work with us as many trains. Although he does come to me and ask me what certain pieces are and how you use them, he still works with them. Although sometimes he seems to get lost. He does seem to manage to do his walks around the house and outside. And I know that the neighbors will point him back home if he gets lost. So we've covered eating. We've covered getting dressed. He likes to sleep. If I don't wake him up by 10, he'll spend the whole day in bed. He can even take an hour nap and still sleep that night with no problem whatsoever. What is the biggest thing that happens on a daily basis? They get angry. Sometimes they might get physical.